What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin. The Red Sox have won a series for the first time since June. It feels like an absolute miracle. And not only did they win a series, they won a series against one of, if not the most dangerous team in baseball, the Houston Astros, taking 2 out of 3 games in a 3-game series. Combine that with the moves that the Red Sox made at the deadline and the pieces that they have brought into this team. I'm curious to see where you guys are at as to whether or not this series changed anything for you, because I'm starting to feel a little bit optimistic. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about everything that happened in this series. We're going to talk about the good things, the bad things, and of course the ugly things. And we're going to talk about whether or not this changed anything in your opinion, whether or not this team made you more optimistic or you're feeling the same or less optimistic. But before we get into that, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It helps these videos out a ton. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Let's start by breaking this series down, and we're going to start with the offense, because in this series it seemed like for the most part every win that the Red Sox got was on the back of one singular person. And in game 1, that was Jarren Duran, who went 2 for 4 with a double and a home run, and he drove in all of the 3 runs in this game. It was really great to see Jarren Duran kind of have a breakout game like that. It's been a while since we've seen Jarren Duran truly contribute to a win, so it was really great to see. Unfortunately though, that was the only 2 hits Jarren Duran had in 12 plate appearances in this series. So in my opinion, while Jarren Duran's game was great, I still want to see more out of him on a more consistent basis. Hopefully this is kind of the starting point to see him sort of get back to where he was when he was on fire for the Red Sox, getting on base and producing runs. As for the second game in this series, the return of Rafael Devers was the star of this game. He also went 2 for 4. He also had a double and a home run. He also drove in all of the Red Sox runs with the 2 runs that they scored in that game. And that's a little bit eerie that both Jarren Duran and Rafael Devers went 2 for 4 with doubles, home runs, and drove in all their runs. But either way, it is so great to have Rafael Devers back in this lineup. This team is such a different and more powerful team with him in the 2 or 3 spot, and I'm very excited to see him back with this team. Xander Bogaerts also had a home run in this series. It was the only run in the last game of this series, and it seems like for the last 3 series we've been talking a lot about extra base hits from Xander Bogaerts, and that's something we haven't done in a while on this channel. So that feels really good to see him start contribute in more ways than just singles and scoring runs is really big for this Red Sox team. As for the trade pieces that made their debut in this series, both of them I believe had pretty decent debuts. Reese McGuire, who came in and caught the last game of the series, went 2 for 3 with a couple of really great singles, and if we can get that kind of production from him in the bottom half of this order, that's big. Tommy Pham also made his Red Sox debut in this series. He played 2 games and got 1 hit in each game, a total of 2 hits. So again, that's pretty big. And that's kind of what Chaim Bloom was thinking, in my opinion. Bring in some supporting cast members to try and help the front end of this lineup, and that's exactly what they did. Obviously this is a super small sample size and I'm not going to get too excited about it, but I am optimistic about these additions if they can continue to hit like this and just get on base. We don't need them to be a powerhouse 2-3 combo. We don't need them to come in here and change everything offensively, but just to add some runners on base for the rest of the guys who have been performing this year. That's huge. As for the offense in total, I wasn't surprised that there wasn't a ton of Red Sox offense in this series. The Houston Astros pitching staff is one of the best in baseball, so for them to get to the Houston pitching staff 4 out of the 6 games that the Red Sox have played against them is huge, and that is definitely something to be optimistic about. Offensively, I'm very optimistic about this team right now. Let's talk about the pitching in this series as well. While the offense did their job in this series, I think the real star of this show, especially in the games that the Red Sox won, was the pitching. In game 1, Nate Eovaldi, who amidst all of the trade rumors, not knowing where he was going to be in a day, came out and did exactly what Nate Eovaldi does. He went 6 1/3 inning, allowing 2 unearned runs and striking out 6. This was classic Nate Eovaldi, and I'm so glad to finally see an outing like this from Nate Eovaldi. He'd been roughed up a little bit in his couple returns from the IL, so to see him go in and dominate a extremely potent offensive lineup like the Houston Astros, this was really great, and I'm pretty glad that he is still on this team after the deadline. Cutter Crawford got the ball in game 2, and he's quickly becoming one of the most talented pitchers on this Red Sox staff. In the games that he has started, he has only really started against legitimate contenders in the playoff picture, and he has shut every single one down, including this recent start with the Houston Astros. He went 6 innings, allowed 1, and also struck out 6. Like I said, he's becoming a staple of this rotation. I'm very excited to see where this Cutter Crawford experiment goes. Rich Hill He came back. I wasn't really excited to see him back into this rotation, and for good reason. He went 3 innings, allowed 4 runs, only struck out 1, and that is kind of what we expect from Rich Hill. I think the plan with the Red Sox was to piggyback Brayan Bello off of Rich Hill, and that seemed like a good idea until Bello got hurt and only pitched 2/3 of an inning because of course he got hurt. Everyone's getting hurt on this Red Sox team, and that is still something that is plaguing this team. But all in all, with starting pitching, I think it was a fantastic series in total for the starting pitching, especially with Cutter Crawford and Nate Eovaldi, especially with Nate Eovaldi coming back and being sort of vintage Nate like we're used to seeing. That could be huge for this Red Sox team. As for the bullpen, they did their job, and they did their job well in this series. Shout out to Tanner Houck, who got 2 more saves under his belt in this series, and both were pretty clean. They weren't perfect, but they were pretty clean, and that's huge for this Red Sox team. To add some stability to the back end of this bullpen the way Tanner Houck has could be a really big momentum shifter for this team. He's officially 8-9 on save opportunities, and while the one missed save opportunity was pretty ugly in New York, I think all in all, having that closer type role on this team finally is huge. John Schreiber did his thing in this series as well. He continues to be one of the best relievers in the bullpen, and I gotta shout out Sal Amora, who I've been ragging on for months, but for him to come in and pitch 2 scoreless innings in 2 different outings, especially in the tight spot in the second game, was big. Sal Moore stepping up and actually producing for this team the way that the Red Sox had hoped is also ginormous. In fact, the only person to actually give up a run in this series out of the bullpen was Caleb Ort, who gave up 2 in the last game, but at that point it didn't entirely matter. I think we all kind of figured we weren't winning that game. The bullpen in this series was fantastic, and that's sort of starting to give me hope. We started to see a momentum shift with this bullpen. To see them shut down a legitimate starting lineup like the Houston Astros in 2 out of the 3 games is big. It's a momentum shifter. But does it change my opinion on this team currently? Does it change your opinion on this team currently? And honestly, I don't know. I am optimistic about this team. I think the fact that we got Rafael Devers back, the fact that the pieces that we got in the trade deadline are already starting to produce a little bit, combined with the fact that the pitching was able to shut down an offense like this, gives me some hope for the future. And it made me, this series above all, made me remember that, hey, this Red Sox team is only 3 games out of a wild card spot. It is not impossible for this team to go on a run in August and get themselves back into a position to be in the postseason fairly easily. It's not like we're 5, 6, 7 games out. We're only a single series away from being in a postseason position, and that is something that I was reminded about in this series. However, the momentum is great of winning games, but it appears as though the Christian Vasquez trade really started a rift in the clubhouse, to the point where Chaim Bloom actually came down to Houston and is traveling with the team to Kansas City to talk to everybody about this trade and why it was done, and kind of explain his reasoning behind what he did at the deadline. That to me is not exactly fantastic news. It means that this clubhouse is not happy with the front office right now, and that could be a momentum killer regardless of whether or not the Red Sox won this series. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully Chaim Bloom gets the opportunity to fully explain himself to the players of this club, because at the end of the day, right, it doesn't really matter if we know the plan of this team. What matters is that the players on this team have an idea of where the front office wants to go, and hopefully Chaim Bloom being there kind of settles some minds and keeps this momentum going. All in all, I'm pretty split. I think that there is still a possibility that the Red Sox team goes on a run, and I think that I should definitely be optimistic about this team right now. The last time the Red Sox won a series against the Houston Astros, they kicked off what was one of the best Junes they've had in franchise history. So hopefully we start to see that sort of thing come back and we have one of those August as well. But I'm not entirely sure, and I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below. Did this series change anything for you? Did this series make you more optimistic, the same amount of optimism, or less optimism? Let me know all your thoughts on this Red Sox team after this Houston Astros series down below. As always, if you've made it to the end of this video, do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day, like I said at the beginning. Plus, you made it to the end of this video, so you might as well hit that subscribe button. You might as well hit that like button. Helps these videos out a ton. You clearly enjoyed the content, and if you could do me a huge favor, share with a friend or family member who loves the Red Sox as much as you do. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the red seats.